Welcome to the latest edition of the Omni Talk Spotlight Series, the series that highlights the people, the companies, and the technologies that are shaping the future of retail. I'm your host, Chris Walton.
And I'm Ann Mazenga.
And today we are giddy with excitement because joining us today to discuss all the trends they are seeing impact retail are Shoptalk's very own Krystina Gustafson and Ben Miller. Krystina and Ben, welcome to Omni Talk.
Hey guys, thanks for having us.
Yes, it's good to have you. Ben's joining us all the way from London today. I hope you're giddy with excitement, Ben. You usually are, but I know Chris dropped giddy in the intro, so I want to know, are you there, Ben?
I am all in. I'm trying to think what a suitably English response to giddy is, but yes, terribly happy to be here. Thank you.
Right. Ben, you're kind of, for our loyal Omni Talk fans will know this, but you're kind of our on-the-ground correspondent in England, telling us everything that's going on over there in the retail world. What's it like filling that role for us?
Hey, look, I am super lucky to live in one of the best cities in the world. I've got incredible retail on my doorstep, and I love the fact that there's this lovely Omni Talk community of geeks who really get excited about the minutiae of retail and what's happening in stores and technology. So I feel like I've found my tribe. I'm very honored to be able to do that role for you guys.
Yes. Well, there's still good retail in Atlanta too, Krystina. That's right. Savage by Fenty just opened a big store there. Like, you've got some good shopping around there too. But Krystina and Ben, I want to just give the audience a little bit of the background on both of you first before we kind of jump into the conversation, and really like what unique perspectives you bring to the Shoptalk team, because I think it's really important for our audience to hear that. So maybe Krystina, we'll start with you and then go to you, Ben.
Sure. I'm happy to kick off. I like to think of myself as a reformed journalist. I studied journalism in college, worked at some of the great trade publications, Women's Wear Daily. I was a retail reporter at CNBC for a couple of years before making my transition over to Shoptalk. And so I think that really lent a lot of the perspectives that I'm able to provide to the Shoptalk agenda. You guys know from having worked with us over the past couple of years, we do absolutely no pay to play. We really think of our agenda from an editorial perspective. So I think a lot of those competencies that come from the journalism world translate very well when we're thinking about the agenda for Shoptalk.
Yeah.
Krystina, I got to ask you too, when you were going down that, when you were choosing that as your career path, was that like the beat you wanted? Did you want to cover retail? Like, I'm always curious, like how people start covering retail from a journalism perspective. Like, tell the audience.
Yeah, it's a really great question. I cannot say that working at CNBC was a big goal of mine all throughout college. It just kind of worked out that way based on actually randomly someone that I had interviewed for our alumni magazine worked at CNBC and helped me get a foot in the door. And then I had a fantastic mentor who her name was actually also Krystina, and she helped me kind of hone the trade, and she covered the retail and consumer beat. So that's kind of how I got in the door and fell in love with it.
Interesting. I'm glad I asked that question.
Yeah, I am too. Well, Ben, let's go to you next. Tell us a little bit about your background, and you've been with the Shoptalk team now for how long has it been? Just over a year?
Oh yeah, not that. Just 6 months coming up.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
feels like you've just been there forever.
Thank you. So look, I'm retailer to start with. So worked in grocery retail. I worked for the Safeway business in the UK. Head office role, so in commercial merchandising and in marketing and eventually in investor relations. So I spent a while in investor relations and then moved to go agency side. So I spent a while building a global retail program and then looking after kind of global insights, but commercial insights, trading interface between retailers and CPGs mainly, a bit of consultancy as part of that. And then more latterly just got completely addicted to the fact it wasn't really my job, kind of everything to do with retail tech and retail transformation. And I, back in sort of 2017, got to know the Shoptalk team, got to know Krystina and got to know Joe. And then, it's just late spring, early summer last year, great conversation with Krystina. There was, a really exciting time at the Shoptalk business. Post-pandemic, events are back, people are back, real momentum, and the business wanting to at the same time really evolve and expand into Europe. So it just felt like a super exciting time to get involved, and really fortunate to have taken the opportunity and moved across and joined join Shoptalk this fall.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting. Is that, both of you have kind of these unique perspectives, as we said, but is that consistent with like the rest of the team at Shoptalk too? I mean, Krystina, you are coming from a journalism background. Ben, you're coming from an operator and retailer background. I mean, how important is that as you're thinking about the team that's kind of putting together this content to make it, the Shoptalk that we all know and appreciate?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I actually don't think anyone on the content team comes from a traditional events background, at least on the US side of things.
That's cool.
Yeah, so Joe Laszlo, who you guys know is our VP of content, he came from Jupiter Research, which is now what is known as Forrester Research, but really sort of that, analytical research background. Raquan Lucas, has previous experience at CB Insights, Ad Age. Alexa, who just recently joined our team, also came from an editorial background. She was at Women's Wear Daily covering beauty, fashion, and sort of the social influencer space. So I find that sort of just really caring about and being passionate about innovation is far more important than sort of, having experience planning track sessions or more sort of traditional event planning, at least when you're on the content team, because we make all the heavy lifting happen with the ops team. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you guys are the best of what you do. I mean, it comes through clearly in the content and the shows that you put on too, in our opinion. And that's why we're excited to have you. So, all right, well, let's get right to it. I teased it in the beginning. We're curious, what trends are you both seeing that you think are having the biggest impact on retail this year? Krystina, why don't you set the stage for us?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question. And quite frankly, I think sometimes our agenda, we look at it every single day. We come to know it very well over the course of, the 9 to 10 months that we're planning the show. But I think at times it can be a little bit overwhelming for the audience if they're trying to decipher, okay, where can I go to find out about XYZ? So we're really, to your point, Chris, trying to distill it down into 5 key themes this year that the audience can go ahead and learn that we think are going to be really impactful to their business going forward. So I'll just kind of quickly run through the 5 themes and then we can double click into them.
She's got 5, Ann.
I know, we like 5. We like 5s and 5s.
5. All right.
Let's roll.
Let's go fast.
Yes, you asked if we deliver. So right. One is, what does best-in-class shopper engagement look like? So thinking about some of the new platforms, the new capabilities that retailers and brands need to be thinking about in order to connect with today's consumer. The second one is, what emerging channels are going to drive growth for my business? So of course, it's Shoptalk. We're going to be covering D2C. We're going to be covering marketplaces, but also thinking ahead of that, what role are retail media networks going to be playing in commerce? What role is the metaverse, Web3 going to be playing in the future of commerce? That's kind of our second trend. I figure that one's going to drive some interest from you guys.
Yeah.
The third one is, how do I deliver outstanding store experiences? I think this is a fun one for us because a lot of people, knowing that Shoptalk is super digitally focused, don't really realize how much we cover physical stores. So thinking about how technology is going to change the role of the associates, and also just kind of how the box is going to change to be more convenient, but also engaging is how we're thinking about physical stores. The next one is, what tech investments will boost my revenue and profitability? Obviously, we are in an economic climate right now that is uncertain at best. And so it can be a little bit harder, I think, for companies who are attending our shows to pitch innovation to their superiors. So thinking about those solutions that are going to sort of tick both of those boxes and potentially get a little bit more buy-in in this tough economy. And then the last one is, what organizational changes will help me win? I think probably everyone in the audience recognizes that sometimes the way an organization is constructed, maybe they're a little bit averse to innovation. Those can sometimes be the biggest pain points in actually getting transformation across the line. So what are some best practices for companies as they're thinking about how to work together and foster innovation to bring those first 4 to light? So those are our 5 themes.
Nice. Yeah, I want to double click into those too. And I think you said something really interesting too that I just want to call out too. The conference is about the store environment too. It's not a digital first conference, which is what I've loved about it since I think I went to the first one back in, I don't know, Krystina, check my math here. I think it was like 2016 or 17,
right. Yeah.
16, right? And that's what I loved about it. It felt like the first omni-channel conference that I'd been to, where if you put all the pieces together, you could see how this whole enchilada was going to unfold, so to speak, or play out. So I'm curious. All right, so let's get back to the list then, because I want to understand. Anna and I both want to understand what each of those mean and get into them as much as we can. So tell us first about what does best-in-class shopper engagement mean? Like, how are you guys, if that's a theme, like, how are you bringing that to life on stage? What are the things you're focused on there?
Great.
Ben?
So yeah, let me start on this one. I think there's two things going on here. One is changing preferences and interests of shoppers of how they receive and how they engage with information. So it's a little bit about commerce everywhere. It's about being where your shoppers are present. The second is this fascinating evolution that's going on in physical stores. So let's think for a moment about a pendulum. And a couple of years ago, if we were having this conversation, 2018, 2019, we'd be having this great conversation about entertainment, retailtainment, how to make the stores experiences.
Right, experiences, right.
Exactly. And then what did we do in 2020, 2021? For all the reasons that we know about, all this experience went out the window, and it came to, let's just get stuff on the curbside to be able to get it to people. Right. And that swing from experience to functional. Okay, well, where's that pendulum swinging now? And that's the question that we're really, really interested about. How do we get the mix of excitement for shopping and the fun in shopping and product discovery, whether it's online or in store? So what does that look like? At the same time as recognizing that you've only got to look at the social media landscape to see. One of the reasons that TikTok is becoming so popular is that people are much more interested in engaging with entertaining content rather than necessarily informative content. So as a brand, how do you get your brand in those places? What does making those shoppable look like? And how do they blend together? So live streaming, shoppable video, how does that fit into making online shopping, which has done a fantastic job of being very efficient buying? How do you make that more entertaining? Whilst physical spaces have potentially gone a bit too kind of buying focus. How do we bring the joy and the discovery back into those spaces? So with those dynamics together are creating a really interesting platform that we're going to be exploring in a whole number of sessions.
That's really fascinating to me, Ben. I've never thought about that, actually. Like what you just described there is like, this physical stores actually become more of this place for convenience, get it done and do it really efficiently. Whereas the online space is actually going towards the direction of like, let's get even more amped up on the entertainment side of things, which had you gone back 3 or 4 years ago, that was not what we were talking about. Right. We were talking about how do you enliven the store? And that could have been misdirection all this time, which is so, wow, that's,
well, and I
never thought about that at all.
It's different too. Like, where's the entertainment and excitement coming from in the shopping experience? And that can be the in-between space too. Like, I think of even like Target curbside Starbucks pickup or returns and things like that. Like, it's not just one or the other anymore either. It's like kind of the combination. Like maybe that memory is happening in your car when you're outside the store and you were driven in because of a TikTok video that you saw. Like, there's just, it's happening in so many spaces. So it'll be so exciting to see those sessions and what the retailers and best in class, providers are doing in that space, I imagine.
And within that, there's some fascinating dynamics about use of zero party and first party data. So how can you inspire? How can you help people discover when these things are changing? Look, we've got Pinterest CEO Bill Reddy is going to be on one of our keynotes, and he'll be talking a bit about shoppable video and how that fits in. So these dynamics are at play, and we know all the stats show us that particularly younger generations are looking for more entertainment online. So bringing that to the physical store is going to be such a fascinating area to delve into.
Well, that I think that leads nicely into the second thing that's on the list, Krystina, that you were talking about around emerging growth channels. Tell us a little bit there about, what should we expect in terms of content and kind of taking on from what Ben was just talking about with some of those new best in class shopper engagement tactics.
Yeah, it's a really good segue. And it's funny to be sitting here, February 2023, basically a year after the whole metaverse craze took off. I would like to think that us at Shoptalk took a pretty measured approach to thinking about what the metaverse could mean to retail. Some people in your audience might remember we did a 10-minute mini documentary really unpacking, I would say, metaverse opportunity for retail. And, our thesis at the time, which I think really does continue to be our thesis, is this is a really exciting space that retailers should be exploring. But it might not look like the metaverse that was really sort of top of mind in the media last year. So I think now that the market has kind of come out of that, classic hype cycle and is a little bit more grounded in reality. I think what we want our audience to be really cognizant of is just because that boom cycle has busted a little bit, that doesn't mean this space can be totally ignored. So what are sort of the enabling technologies and capabilities that support a Web 3.0 environment, whether it's blockchain-based loyalty, whether it's engaging with consumers on Roblox, consumers are spending time in that space. Perhaps it isn't seeing the same growth that it was a year ago, but it's still an opportunity in a space that retailers can't be ignoring. So I think one thing that I'm particularly excited about, we had Brie Olson, who was recently named co-CEO of PacSun, speak on a lot of the exploration that they're doing in the metaverse. They really are one of those companies that I think is really embracing just sort of this culture of experimentation. And so she's going to be joining us again this year, talking about some of their latest initiatives. They actually just recently launched a new virtual gaming experience in Roblox. So I'm particularly curious to hear just kind of her take on what they've learned over the past year. How have they pivoted? What new areas are they going to explore based upon those learnings? And so I'm very excited to hear from her. We've also got Snap talking about some of the augmented reality side of things. So yeah, that's one that I think is a don't miss.
Krystina, I'm curious, are you seeing, like, if you go back to last year versus this year, as you're preparing for the conference, would you say that you're seeing less energy or energy, that's probably the best word I can come up with. Are you seeing less energy put towards those types of things than, say, like the show me the money tech investments of, hey, how do we just get better, more efficient with our operations every day? Like, is that a correct assumption that I'm making in asking that question? Are you feeling that, or what's your take on it?
I am feeling that 100%. I think just to toss another buzzword out at you.
Yeah, please.
Another space we're seeing a lot of energy is generative AI. And I actually would make the argument that space is less of a boom bust than the metaverse was. While I realize there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to make the sort of chat GPT type experience what it needs to be from an accuracy and quality perspective, I would argue there's a lot more immediate payback that a company can see. There are operational efficiencies, whether it's using generative AI in a chatbot experience to assist consumers, whether it's to do product descriptions on your website, like that just feels a lot more tangible. So it's a very exciting innovation, but it feels a little bit more, I don't want to say near term, because obviously there's still a lot of work to do, but in some ways it is a little bit more near term in my mind.
Yeah, that's a great point. In fact, like, it's funny you said that, because even this morning I was reading things, Anne, where I was like, oh my God, everyone is talking about, like, now the latest thing is, how can I apply chat GPT to my retail business, right? Like, how can I put AI into my business immediately? So it's great that you brought that up. All right, well, let's go ahead, man.
There's another side, just to pick up. Chris, I've heard you call this year the show me the money year before.
Yeah.
And look, we are absolutely picking that up. We have more CFOs on the program than ever this year, which I think is really interesting. The Target, Macy's, for example, and part of the conversation will absolutely be about alternative revenue streams and finding growth away from the customer. And for any retail business, looking away from your end customer comes with a warning sign. So we're going to be talking about that. But we think alternative revenue streams, shared distribution, retail media, it's going to be big. Everybody picked on it the moment they walked into the Mandalay Bay for grocery shop back in September, and we're going to be unpacking that, and we've got some really interesting sessions talking about that as well this year.
Well, Ben, let me ask about that too, because the CFO call out is awesome. That's so cool that you guys are in front of that on this topic particularly. So kudos to you for that too. But when you think about, let's go back to the in-store side of this and the in-store side of what you showcase too, because still the lion's share of the volume happens there, which also probably means the lion's share of a retailer's cost still happens there to some degree as well. So talk to us then about, how are you thinking about, what are you focused on? What themes are you seeing around the evolution of the in-store experience and where the tech is really coming into play? Is it operationally again? Is it more on the discovery side? Like, how are you seeing that, Ben?
Oh, great question. And it's something that we've been thinking about a lot. So we've been having a lot of fun unpicking this one. And it feels like one of those threads you just keep pulling at and more keeps coming.
Right.
So we're going to build on this free Shoptalk Europe to grocery shop. Because look, we've talked about omni-channel before. We're now talking a lot about sort of unified commerce, but really what does that mean? And how can you take, in a unified way, the online shopping experience and the offline shopping experience, and for a customer to make it really seamless? I mean, look, shoppers never talk about seamless. I'd love to think of a better word, but we're working on that at the moment. But it's what it means is for a customer for a shopper, how does it feel like you're working with the same organization, the same company, the same tone of voice, the same brand, and you're getting the same experience? And we're breaking it down into two areas. So one is, how do you take out friction from the shopping experience? What online has done, to be able to find a product, double click on your Apple Pay or other device and it's on its way to you. It's taken out a whole load of friction. So how do you recreate that frictionless environment in store? Whether that's through payment, whether that's through wayfinding, kind of what does that look like for customers? At the same time, you have this continuous element. So how do you make sure as a retailer, you're enabling a shopping mission that started offline to happen in in-store environments and making that as easy as possible? And then what's the supply chain tech to make all that happen, to make all the back office go? And that's where we're really focusing on the store. And it really nicely builds on, we've already talked about engaging shoppers. We've talked about kind of the theater of retail. This is making it efficient and convenient for today's customers, using the definition of convenience that they use rather than what as an industry, how we'd have thought about convenience.
Yeah, if I could just add one thing to that, because I think it's a super great point. I do think, to your question, Chris, a lot of the investments that we're seeing are actually going toward enabling store associates to do a better job fulfilling customers' needs. And I think one great example of that is Brilliant Earth. I don't know how many folks are familiar with them, but they're essentially, they started as a D2C fine jewelry retailer. They've been opening stores, as many of these D2C companies do, but I think what's really unique about their strategy is I can go online, I can do a virtual consultation with someone where I'm saying, okay, I like, princess cut, I like, this gemstone, et cetera, so that when I get to the showroom, the associate there already has all that information and data on me. And the, let's say 30 minutes that I'm in store is much more targeted. So I think that kind of hits on what Ben was talking about, is that continuous experience. Okay, I've already given you this information in a virtual environment. How do you translate to that to the physical environment and make sure, that you're removing friction, that you're making this convenient. And I'm still also, not entirely losing that element of discovery.
Yeah, I think it's really important that you're calling that out, Ben and Krystina, because I think, like Chris alluded to earlier, this is I think the number one thing that we hear when people are asking us, like, is Shoptalk the right conference for me? Like, it's so digital focused. And I'm curious what your response is to that. And maybe if you even throw in a couple more of the speakers that are coming in to talk specifically towards that store experience. And really, I think the response is that you have to be thinking digitally. If you aren't starting digitally and thinking about your store experience, then that's a deeper issue. But what do you kind of say to those people who are considering, like, maybe my job is focused on the associates, it's focused on store operations? What should they look for at this show?
It's a really great call out. And I think, to be honest, we're probably not telling the story well enough. I think, look, this is typically the case with our agenda, where there are places where it is called out very clearly, sure. Whether it is a session that's explicitly called, improvements in store operations. Right. Like that's as cut and dry as we could
Hit
get.
Over the head.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But I do think, to Ben's point, one other thing that we think about programming our agenda is, even if it's a session on unified retail, of course, physical stores play a role in that. If it's a story about fulfillment, or a session about fulfillment, is it a takeoff technologies type of situation where there's micro fulfillment happening in the physical store? And so I think, even where it's not overtly called out on a specific session in the agenda, we really try hard to bring different perspectives to the other topics on our agenda and make sure that we're covering all the different channels across the entirety of the show. And to some other speakers, just a couple off the top of my head, we're going to have the COO from IKEA, who's going to be talking about how they're sort of updating their store format. Cool. So it's not always that gigantic labyrinth, right? Yes. Some smaller store format makes sense. So it's super excited to hear about that. We're also going to have the president of Canada Goose, who's going to be talking, I would say, kind of on the other end of that spectrum, more about the experiential store and their growth plans there. And then also a couple of other D2C companies. One that comes to mind is Studs, which is a ear piercing and jewelry retailer, is going to be talking about sort of how they're leveraging their stores as a community hub and a place for people to come together. And then, hey, also get your ears pierced and buy some jewelry.
All right. I love that. Well, thank you. I appreciate the candid and eager response that you're showing. Again, bringing both your backgrounds in as journalists, as operators, to really make sure that part of the discussion is going to be front and center for a lot of the people attending. I want to move to the next one, Krystina. I'm going to go back to you. Part of the in-store experience is the right tech that you're putting into those stores to make those stores more efficient and more convenient, as Ben was talking about. But can you elaborate a little bit about this theme and how you're going to focus on how retailers and brands can get improved profitability investing in these types of technologies?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I do agree. I think stores are a big piece of it. The other thing that I do want to make sure I hit on is just the role of the supply chain. That's another key area that we're going to be talking about. So a couple of speakers I'm excited about in this space. We're going to have the chief supply chain officer from Nordstrom talking about how they're leveraging robotics in their warehouses in order to enable faster fulfillment. We're going to have, I'm going to butcher his title, but I think it's EVP Omni Retail, EVP Omni Tech, something along those lines. I'm from Walmart, and he's actually going to be talking about sort of automating across the entire organization, whether it's, through demand forecasting, fulfillment, last mile, and really just kind of finding efficiencies throughout the entire business. Quite frankly, that's another one that I'm particularly excited to hear about.
Excellent. Cannot wait. Ben, anything that you're excited about for that fourth one, the retail tech that will show some improved profitability, Mr. Retail Tech Explorer over there?
Oh yeah, no, this is a session that I'm really interested in. So, look, 3/4 of the speakers that we have at Shoptalk are retailers and brands, and they're really senior and they're giving us strategic views. But we also handpick a selection of vendors, of tech companies. We have our starter pitch, and then we have one for slightly more established companies. And those sessions are great. It just gives a chance. So again, we pick them all based on where we think really interesting examples. So we've got, we're covering last mile fulfillment. We're covering some areas of robotics. There is in store, we've got some generative AI stuff on the AI. So those sessions are going to be really interesting, and they might not necessarily be companies that before you go in there. You always walk away learning a lot when you've been to them.
Yeah, and they get your mind started on new trains of thought too, which is also what I love about the show more than anything. So, all right, so let's close it up here. You said the last one, which I think is unique to you as well. Like, you're focused on the organizational structure that's required to set retailers up for success. How'd you identify that, number one? Like, how did that make the list? I'm curious. And then two, how are you bringing that to life? Ben?
Great. Yeah, great. So how has it made the list? We're really fortunate. We have a fantastic advisory board. So we've got an advisory board for Shoptalk in the US, and we've got an advisory board in Europe as well. That's made up of senior manufacturers and retailers, and they give us their time and they give us their feedback about what's top of mind. And it's a reoccurring theme from leaders that they want to get input on how do I set up my organization to win. So they help us drive and steer the conversation. Look, there's 3 areas to this that we're going to be looking at. One is around leadership and leadership required, and that culture of innovation that's required to kind of keep changing, keep evolving. Second area is all around data insights. We've got some workshop sessions, which are slightly longer ones where we get a big practical around data, and some great conversation about how you bring it to life. And then the third area, which I'm really looking forward to, Krystina mentioned it was a great call out. We're going to be doubling down in a couple of sessions specifically on frontline workers and supporting frontline workers, the options available for frontline workers to really help empower and to drive your digital transformation. I think that's an area that we've not talked about enough in the past, and we're really excited about diving down on that one.
Yeah, I love the point about data too, because I think as a retailer, like if you look back at the last 20, 30 years, that's the one thing where they're like, organizationally, what the heck do I do? Where do I even start? Retailers for the most part were started by people that love product, and get excited by it and want to put a product in the market. So thinking about it from a data perspective is a big challenge, and how to set the company up for success in that regard has got to be a difficult thing too. So kudos to you for that as well. All right, well, let's get you out here on this. I'm curious, if you had to pick one thing, you can't say more than one thing that you're most excited about at this year's show, what would it be? Ben, let's go back to you.
One thing. Okay. One thing that we spend a lot of time working on the program in advance. As Krystina says, it's kind of like becomes our baby. We become wedded to it, and then over 3 days we get to release it into the wild. And on one of those days, on the Tuesday, Krystina and Joe are going to sort of stand on the main stage, and we're going to run through what we call our zeitgeist, which is our summary of everything we're hearing. It's our sort of 20-minute thesis on the state of the union. What's then really exciting is to then have all the conversations with the community that's going to be there, whether it's at the party, whether it's while we're listening to Nelly, it's at the drink receptions. So actually go, look, how close have we got this? What do you think? What's new? Where should we be going next time to really test that thesis? And it's those conversations that really make Shoptalk what it is. So I think that's probably my one thing.
Way to get Nelly in there too. So you made one thing into two things. That's good, Ben. Very well done. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Very well. All right, Krystina, how about you? Same question. The one thing you're excited about.
I don't know. I'm upset that I didn't think of Nelly. Last year I was really big on Team Flowrider, so I'm also excited about Nelly, but he's got big shoes to fill after the Flowrider concert last year. I think, look, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to say one content thing, and I think just one overall sort of event thing. Obviously, I'm a little biased being the head of content, but I do truly believe this is the best speaker lineup we have ever had, or that the industry has seen. We have 275 speakers plus 2/3 of them, as Ben had pointed out before, are C-level. So really the folks that are driving the strategic direction for the industry and can give you an indication of where you should be looking and investing to succeed in the future. Two other things that I'm very, very proud of are, it's going to be our second year running where we have 50% women speakers and 33% who represent diverse groups. That's something that's incredibly important to me and the organization, as we just make sure that we're elevating diverse voices across the industry. So super proud of that. But I think the one thing that I'm most excited about this year is just sort of how the event industry and Shoptalk in particular has evolved to be more than just a conference, right? We're leaning a lot harder into building the community and making it easier for people to make the connections that, quite frankly, they're coming to Las Vegas to make. So anyone who's familiar with our hosted retailers and brands program will have a little bit of a heads up on what I'm about to explain. But essentially, that was a program where we had a technology double opt-in meetings for 15 minutes throughout the course of the show, where we would pair a retailer or a brand with a solution provider for those 15-minute meetings. Really, the idea being, getting business done in an efficient way. What we're really excited about this year is we're actually going to be opening up that capability to all 10,000 attendees who are coming to Shoptalk. So if I'm a member of the media and I want to meet with one of the speakers, I can put in a request to meet them. If I'm a little worried about my job security, given all the technology that's happening, perhaps I can reach out to a VP of omni-channel at a large retailer brand. Perhaps I just want to share best practices, if I'm a marketing leader with another leader from a company my size. So it really opens up that technology to every single person who's at the show, which I think is going to be incredibly powerful, because we've all been in those rooms where you really want to go up and meet new people, but you don't know where to get started. And so just kind of having that double opt-in, you're both there, you both know you want to meet each other. It takes a lot of that fear and chance out of things. So very excited about that.
Right. And Krystina, explain a little bit for people, like how that fits into the overall agenda. Like, when are those meetings taking place? How do you kind of decide what's going on? Because I know there's so much. So you don't want to miss a thing at Shoptalk. It's always like, how do I get it all in?
Don't want to miss a thing.
But what can people expect from when those interactions will take place?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And quite frankly, that's one of the biggest challenges we have, is how jam-packed our agenda is. We are very thoughtful to make sure that these meeting hours do not conflict with any content. So it never has to be a decision of, oh, I want to go to meetings, but I really wanted to see this session. You can sign up for as many meetings as you want to take. You attend those, go to as many sessions as you want to attend. We just really try to make the entire event open to everyone to explore it how they want to explore it.
I love that. It's so important to get to those meetings, to make the time for those. And we've heard, throughout the pandemic, the Zoom calls, like the most rich Zoom calls that you were on were when you could get a group of people in the room just connecting and talking about the challenges that they've faced over the course of the last couple of years and the solutions that worked and didn't. So I think this is going to be a really great part of the show.
And then look, we're super excited that we're then going to take the same principles, this meetup technology, and we're rolling that straight to the Spanish Sun, to Barcelona.
That's right, Barcelona.
Ben's got to get his plug in there.
May. That's right. Exactly, yeah. So the themes we've talked about today, in many of them are the same as what we've seen play out in Europe. It would be remiss of me sat here in London today to not mention that we're going to be bringing together the European community at Shoptalk Europe. We're really excited. We've got an incredible lineup building. Biggest retailers from Carrefour to Inditex to Amazon, the biggest brands from Adidas to Unilever, and some great tech companies from Trigo to Firework are all going to be there. So if seeing how the themes that we're going to be talking about in Vegas next month, how they are applied and then they're different in Europe, and that the whole variation across the European market is something that we're really excited to be exploring. But that's coming up in May.
Yeah, and my hunch too is that they're probably even more advanced in terms of how they're happening over there than they are back in the States too. But time will tell, and we'll be on the ground there in Barcelona with you, Ben, and we'll be sure to check that out and report back on whether that hypothesis is what I'm trying to say and is true. And who knew that there was going to be an Aerosmith drop in that last segment? So that was pretty fun.
You definitely want to make sure everyone heard your.
Oh yeah. You got to take credit where give credit where credit is due. Ed.
That's not even Aerosmith. I think they covered that song.
Oh, did they? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was like Lone Star.
Oh, really?
I think it was like even older than that. We'll have to dig into
we'll check that out here.
We'll update everybody at Shoptalk in just a few weeks.
Yeah, we'll sing it on the Fast Five this week. All right. Well, hey, thanks to you both. That was awesome. It was totally fun, totally insightful. Learned a lot actually. Like I had a big epiphany right there in that first one that you guys were when we were talking about the first one. My head just exploded. So I got to come to grips with that. But Krystina, like, so when is Shoptalk? How do people register? Like, let's do that whole thing.
Yeah, fantastic. So Shoptalk is March 26th to the 29th at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. But make sure that you buy your ticket before March 3rd. Otherwise, you will not have the full experience of joining Meetup, which is the program that I was just describing. So shoptalk.com/US is where you can go and purchase tickets before that March 3rd deadline.
Excellent. That wraps us up. Thank you so much to Krystina Gustafson and Ben Miller for sitting down with us today. Thanks to all of you for listening. We hope to see you at Shoptalk in just a few weeks. And as always, on behalf of all of us here at Omni Talk, be careful out there.